Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I am your host for the show. Thank you so much for being here. I would encourage you to subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, also on YouTube. That would be great. Also, share these episodes. Share the news that Keys to the Shop has over 1,000 published episodes. I mean, that's crazy to say. Over 1,000 published episodes now that are all focused on helping coffee shops run better and people in coffee shops thrive. I also want to mention today that Keys to the Shop, on top of doing the podcast, also offers consulting and coaching. That's what Keys to the Shop is about as well. So there's this free resource in this podcast. And then there is the coaching and consulting service where if you've been a listener for a while and you kind of know the ethos of this show and my disposition towards wanting to help people thrive in their operations, in their quality, in the culture, and the people first systems of a shop. This is the kind of thing that maybe for you, if you're opening a coffee shop for the first time and you need assistance, if you need a coach and consultant to help you along the way, or you're somebody who already has a successful coffee shop, but you know the value of having an outside perspective to give you that next level or that edge of refinement. You could be dealing with some serious issues in your cafe right now related to those things, operational issues, culture, quality issues. There's a lot of ways that we can work together to solve problems, to grow businesses, and to start on the right foot. So go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. Let's just have a conversation and see where it goes from there. And you can also click on the link in the show notes for a free discovery call. And I would look forward to talking with you. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Arto Brick, at Arto Brick on Instagram, and then the Pacific Barista series, the plant-based beverage powerhouse. They have always been such a great supporter of coffee culture, and their products speak for themselves. PacificFoodService.com. I'm going to talk more about them later in today's episode. But right now, I want you to imagine that you are a coffee shop that has run for years, decades, but nobody knows except the people you serve. How would you feel about that? Well, for a lot of people, they might feel a little conflicted because they feel like if I'm doing good work, the world would know. And I would want the world to know that we're doing good work. And it's actually a sign of our effectiveness for the world to know that we are a great coffee shop. And today's episode is kind of a balance to that perspective. We have associated success with notoriety. We have associated success and the quality of our work, the effectiveness of our work, with whether or not we are getting accolades from the people in the industry that we consider our peers, or that the industry publications or platforms, or, was I featured on a podcast? Did I win an award? Did I get recognized this way or that way? We all seek validation. Right now, though, it feels like what is happening is we are seeking validation in ways that undermine the integrity of what we actually do in the day-to-day world of the shop. Past episodes have talked about how competition is something that could potentially atrophy your business. Competitions like the United States Barista Championships, Coffee Fest's latte art competition. I don't care what it is. If you hold up for yourself the glowing visage of this competition as a way to find fulfillment in your work, and whether or not it was right to continue working in coffee or to start this coffee shop, it is a hollow victory. I would guess, in fact, most champions know this after they've won. That's it. That's what you did. You won. That doesn't add meaning necessarily to your work unless that meaning was already in your work. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is the value and the power of great work over time. And I could even title this as the power and benefit of anonymous work over time, anonymous good work over time. Coffee shops that you will never know about are making huge impacts on the industry. And you could say to yourself, well, how is it possible to make an impact unless I'm being tweeted about, unless I'm being, on the forefront of the industry? People need to know my name. Fame has replaced effectiveness. I always go back to some of the larger examples here. For example, we've got friends, Pachamama Coffee is a great example. Past episodes, we've featured Thalion Tremaine, who's the CEO. His bosses are coffee farmers. They own the supply chain. They're an organization that has been around for decades. And yes, they've won sustainability awards. Had they not won a sustainability award, would they have continued doing their work? Of course, with the same ferocity, integrity, urgency. Yes, because the point wasn't to find that validation in the industry, although that's nice. The point is to see the difference being made in the work right where you are and not necessarily demand that your work be validated through these glittering platforms. That to me feels like the most successful thing that I could shoot for or anybody could shoot for, because if you really want to make a difference with what you do, that difference will not often look the way that you most want it to look. The same principle applies for when you open a coffee shop and you realize that it will not look exactly the way that you thought it would look on your vision board. The business plan is not going to be the way it looks 5 years from now. It will look different. And thank God for that, because sometimes that is because you've discovered a better way, because you were paying attention in the moment. You weren't forcing the image of the thing that you built in ignorance to become manifest in spite of your knowledge, in spite of the fact that you've found out a better way. You're like, no, this is the way our business plan is, and this is the way it has to be. You were wise and you pivoted, you adjusted, you paid attention to the people in front of you, the work that was necessary to serve those people. And now your business looks different. That's not a failure. That's actually a success. You've evolved past needing that certainty, and you established certain principles of operation, and you are kind of agnostic. The wiser you get, a little bit more agnostic towards the means by which you accomplish those things. Those operational values that you hold can be accomplished maybe a few different ways. They themselves are non-negotiable, but we can accomplish this with community, and that community can accomplish this in lots of different ways. Now, the point of today's episode is to say that lots of different conversations have been going on in the industry about gaining certainty and a solid footing amidst what feels like and is often shifting ground. Pricing, obviously, being one of those things, the uncertainty of income based on a public service like a coffee shop. We know we can expect X number of customers on average, but some days it's high, some days it's low. Every article written around the future of coffee or how you can pivot and how you can make it in today's economy, it's all about gaining for yourself certainty. And part of how you're going to do this, which is not wrong to try to gain some solid ground, is by cutting off from yourself this demand that we have that the industry recognize the work we're doing. You have to recognize that we're doing this work. That's when we know we've made a big difference, when we finally made it, baby. We got featured in Barista Magazine or Roast Magazine, or Fresh Cup did an article on us online, or, that feels really good. But don't confuse that for effective work. We have to develop, just like we talked about this in hospitality, okay? Hospitality can be sustainable if you are sustained personally by hospitality. That's it. You've got to derive joy from providing joy to others. That's how it's sustainable. And in a similar way, your work in your cafe needs to be fulfilling to you in and of itself. And the metrics and the things that you look for in that work to give you that idea that we're on the right path need to be within the sphere of that environment of your world, not the SCA, not a featured article, not an award for, this type of thing is fun, it's cool, but the most meaningful stuff has to be the thing that is closest to you, and as a consequence might as well be anonymous, because we've been trained again to think of fame and features and in national and global stages as though those are the penultimate example of how one becomes the best at a thing. We've talked about this in another episode where we said, to be the best coffee shop doesn't mean you win best coffee shop. This is coming from somebody who ran a competition called America's Best Coffee House. There was an online thing where people were sent out across the globe to try to pick the best coffee house in the world. And are they? For some they are, for some they aren't. It is the specialty coffee equivalent of USA Today coming up with best coffee in all 50 states, picked in such rather relatively arbitrary ways and almost impossible rubric of topics to qualify them, like consistency and hospitality and things like that. Obviously, we can't judge these things unless we live there and go to that coffee shop all the time and can judge the consistency, can judge the smell, the feel, the function, the hospitality, the taste. All of that stuff is lived into and experienced in relationship to it. So the best our industry has to offer is the most hollow and superficial of judgments. And we eat it up because we have actually replaced our focus on meaningful, in-depth, yet maybe a little anonymous work for achieving aesthetic success. And so today, if you were ever going to write an article about the future of coffee, or maybe it could be titled "How to Secure the Future of Your Coffee Shop," it would be focus on your coffee shop, focus on your people, do the work on a daily basis, and become a better version of yourself. And you together as a collaborative group of managers and trainers and baristas and the owners, you all work together trying to serve one another as well as you possibly can in the service of your community. If you do that and you train yourself to love the process of becoming and the process of apprenticing yourself to the working more consistency and more quality in your coffee, just a more consistent experience of great hospitality, you can't. What else are you going to do? What else is there really? You can learn things from a podcast, you can learn things from a trade show, but all of it has to be in service to your deep organizational knowledge of what is needed because you're paying attention. Hey everybody, it's Chris. We'll be right back with our episode, but first I want to talk to you about our sponsors, starting with Arto Brick. If you're looking for somebody to help you fulfill your vision for a wonderful coffee bar, and when I say like unique and wonderful, I mean the textures, the materials, they matter. The stonework, tiles, bricks you use, that this is important. Hard surfaces matter. And that's what Arto Brick is all about, helping you fulfill. They'll bring those dreams to reality. Go to Arto Brick on Instagram and reach out to Armin, one of the owners there. This is a family run and operated business since the 70s in Los Angeles, and everything is made in LA. You're going to be really impressed. And I hope that you loop them into the process, whether it's another store in your chain of stores or your first cafe. Let's bring Arto Brick in and let them make these unique dreams of yours for your cafe become reality. Now, I want to also talk about the Pacific Barista Series. If you go to pacificfoodservice.com, you can get samples sent to your store and try the line of plant-based performance beverages that have made them famous with baristas around the world. It stands up to the heat from steaming, has great texture for latte art, and also has a balance of flavor for keeping things focused on coffee. So this is their craft. This is what they love to do. They support the community through the beautiful products they create. So check them out if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your customers. The Barista Series is worth a taste. If you've been operating a coffee shop for a while and you walk in without an agenda to, well, we can always get better. I don't know how, but just we'll see what happens. You're not paying attention. You need to have an agenda, because you'll know what you need to improve in, or you'll know where your coffee shop and your people need resourcing to continue doing the great work they're doing. It doesn't always have to be based on, oh, we really are suffering in this way, or we're failing in this way. It could be that you're being very successful and that all you're doing is you're maintaining excellence. All you're doing is you're fighting entropy. And that's fine. But that requires still effort. It requires the going out and procuring of energy and resource, personal and maybe from outside. These tools might serve us as we continue to do great work. So the benefits of great work over time, first of all, means that you develop a resiliency that supplemental education and outsourcing your security to organizations could never do for you. You don't need them. Will you use them? Of course. Why not? Some great stuff out there. I would hope that you come to Keys to the Shop as a podcast with that same idea, that it's something that I want. Is it something I need? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We're all in the different processing points here, but you have the ability, you have the stuff, you have what it takes to focus in and do that great work and study your organization, study your people, study yourself and the product you all create together, to know what is needed, to know how good you're doing, and again, to train yourself to derive joy from the process of providing this for other people. You'll find out that you actually don't need as much as you thought you did, as long as you're using what you have very, very well. So some of the benefits you could be talking about with great work over time in that environment. That was almost like a half of the episode caveat of what I would consider an environment that is great work in a coffee shop. What you get is the benefit of defining and redefining. Doing great work means you get to see the result of your great work. And doing it over and over again and paying attention to it means you are able to iterate and change over time. You're not just changing based on what you feel is maybe like FOMO. You're not just buying gadgets and gear. You're not changing roasters just because you saw the packaging look cooler than the roaster you're using now. Same goes for roasters. You're not just changing farmers because some arbitrary reason, because you feel like you need to have different processing methods because that's where the industry is going. The ones who are doing the best versions of coffee bars are the ones who are doing the most contemplative approach to their processes making it a people first decision, and they're not just thrown about by trends. There's more consistency, and that redefinition of what success looks like in the business comes from how the business needs change, and that comes from how you're paying attention to the business. One of the other benefits of doing this great work over time means that you get this wisdom that helps you prioritize your efforts. So, in the beginning, you may have organized your energy according to what you needed. But as you grew as a leader, as an owner, and got your footing, now you can help others more readily, which means what was priority back then is now maybe second or third on the list. Now priority means that we focus in on getting our leadership team what they need and helping them succeed, because the business now is large enough that we actually do have a leadership team. It's not just me doing everything. So doing that work over time allows you to see the need, respond to it, and organize priorities accordingly. Again, being present allows you to do that, and paying attention to the work over time allows you to do that. One of the other ways that you benefit from longevity and focus in your cafe is you get feedback. I mean, that is what kind of feeds your decisions. Feedback in that scenario where you're dedicated to long-term success in your sphere locally, first and foremost. Feedback isn't something that triggers a sense of, let's say, worry. Feedback is interesting. Feedback is curious. Okay, good. That's interesting. It's not a threat. It's just information. Now, some feedback might be really dire, depending on the message shared, but we're just talking about general feedback from customers and employees. You've processed that and you use it to make your next big decision. That introduces the next phase of growth of your business and so forth. You can't really get to that point unless you have been doing that focused, great work over time. The work produces feedback. We have work to actually reflect upon, time to reflect. I have a whole year under my belt. A barista has hundreds of hours to reflect upon. Now their feedback becomes more valuable. The longer you do it, the more valuable the feedback becomes, because there's more experiences that feed into how that feedback actually was conjured up, right? So that's another definite benefit of longevity. And by the way, I will also mention that scaling your business too quickly robs you of depth and wisdom in some way, because you then take yourself out of the contemplation of your one store, and now you've got to get back in that saddle of entrepreneurship to start the second store. And that's why I always recommend, if at all possible, you should probably be your own kind of speed bump for this progress of your cafe. I love seeing a place go from one store to two stores after years, plural, of operation, instead of within the first year or after 1 year. You probably don't know enough about yourself, your people, your community, or your business to make a good go of a second store at that point. And just because the industry loves you does not mean you're doing a good job. It doesn't mean that your customers aren't secretly cursing the fact that they can't get a consistent cappuccino from you, because we're just so doll-eyed over accolades and other things related to our branding and collabs with famous people and all this other garbage. It means nothing. It means nothing. I don't care if you get an NBA star, a singer, an actor to sip your coffee on a curb and a cool photo shoot. There's no progress made in the industry by virtue of that fact. Is it interesting? Can you tell your grandkids that one day I mean, it's like your grandpa saying, this one day I served a Coca-Cola to Elvis. Well, great, grandpa, but are you a good grandpa? You know, to me, it feels that way sometimes, where we're fighting against all of this yeah, garbage stuff, the replacement for meaning. It's like you're spending so much energy figuring this stuff out and being jealous of people who get this stuff. Like, don't be jealous of them, pity them, because they don't get, because people who are obsessed with this kind of world of, aesthetics and collabs and things like that, unless these things are done with a deep focus on creating a deeper roots and functionality of the work and how it benefits the people right then and there, it's just what do you call it, vanity. And it takes a lot of energy, and so they don't actually get to experience the kind of soul satisfying moments that a more simple but deeper and more meaningful expression of coffee can accomplish. So don't think of this as me saying that these things are somehow like evil or something like that. I don't think they are. But I do know human nature, and I do know FOMO gets to be pretty strong when you know that it's like, oh, so and so is doing a collab with this band and they've got a new label for their coffee bags and all this other stuff. Well, we can't do that. It makes you feel all weird inside, feel a certain way about it. And what happens is then you don't show up for the people that need you the most because you're feeling weirdly down about your work because somebody else did something. If that's the case, take Instagram off your phone, shut the computer down, stop focusing on other people, and focus in on the value of what you have right now. And watch yourself become happier. I mean, I my work in this job of doing keys to the shop, I get exposed to many different brands. And I'll tell you something, behind the scenes of most of the places that you love is just the most ordinary, average thing. No one's really that special, okay? No one's really that exceptional. We don't have to inspire ourselves by constantly feeding ourselves heroic and exceptional people. That's unsustainable because it teaches us that we are never good enough. It teaches us that we will never achieve because the thing that we're holding up as an example actually doesn't exist. What exists is what's in front of you. It's who is in front of you. It's the person in the mirror. That's where your focus should be. If all we did from now until next year was we sought to do this great work in our world without the expectation of recognition, without the pursuit of recognition, without the idea that somehow industry accolades are what is going to prove the validity and effectiveness of our work, awards or otherwise, kudos or otherwise, unplugged ourselves from that community and instead said, what we have here in this town with our people together is the only thing we'll focus on. And we're going to train ourselves to do this great work for its own sake, for the people, day after day, and derive joy from this. By the time that year is up, I'd question whether you felt the urge to just plug back in. Or if you did, you might look at it all a little bit differently. You might be a little stronger in the process. There's nothing wrong with community in different forms in the industry per se. It's just that we got to make sure that it's not replacing the first things, that it's not being used as a way to distract ourselves away from the things that we know intuitively are the most meaningful, yet are not as shiny, as glittering. So I'm a big fan of this idea that there is this work to do. The industry as a whole would be leveled up in the eyes of the consumer. We would sell more coffee. We would earn more trust. We could demand higher prices. We could do all the things that we know we need to do and want to do more effectively if this was true about how we organized our focus and energy. And I know there's lots of you out there that are actually doing this right now, and you could say amen to that. Yes, I know, because we used to be about that, and now we're about this. And I can tell you a big difference is I'm not as worried about people recognizing me. I'm just happy that we're providing something great for our community. And here's the last thing is you get a lot to look forward to, because at this point, if you've been paying attention deeply and becoming yourself with your cafes then you've got a lot to look forward to, because what's next? It's unique. It's interesting. We don't know. It's fun. We know that we're going to be there for it, and we're going to be fully there for it. And we're not going to let this other stuff rob us of that focus. So these are the benefits of great work over time. And I hope that that's the kind of thing that you are engaged with, and that is actually what you're aspiring to do. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about today's episode, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. And if you're interested in coaching, consulting, if you want to be a part of our Keyholder coaching group, it's a paid mastermind group. Last 6 months, we do it twice a year. If you're a cafe owner with 2 or more years of running your brick and mortar coffee shop, this is something that might be good for you as well. So email chris@keystotheshop.com. And with that is it. Thank you. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.